This is Boomer Life on CL 650.
Welcome back. This is Boomer Life on CL 650, and I'm Joanne Sutton. Along with our special guest today from the Alzheimer's Society of British Columbia, we have CEO Maria Howard with us as well, and we're continuing with our focus on families with dementia. That's our theme for the month of February, and we'd like to welcome our next special guest. We have Roger and Pat Howard with us. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thanks for both of you coming in. Now, I understand there's a huge story behind this wonderful couple that we've just introduced you to. I don't know if we have enough time in today's show to cover a lot of ground, but we're trying to bring out some of the highlights of your story. A bit of a cross-border love story here. You're both from the United States, aren't you?
I grew up in Cincinnati, Ohio.
And Roger?
In New York City.
In New York City. Now, your lives have honored some brilliant academic careers, studying and teaching around the world. I understand your travels have taken you to Inner Mongolia and China, and both of you were professors in the communications department up at Simon Fraser University. And I wondered which one of you has the PhD, or is it both of you?
Both of us.
Both of you. Oh my gosh. I don't even know where to start with the questions, but maybe I could get you each to tell us a little bit about yourselves and how you came to Canada. Who wants to start? Roger?
No, she's better.
No, she's better.
No,
Okay.
Roger, you should talk about how you came to Canada. Well, I came to Canada in 1963 and studied at the University of Toronto, and then I went to Saskatchewan to be in a community organizing project with the Federation of Saskatchewan Indians and the Métis Association of Saskatchewan. And he came in the fall after I arrived to teach at University of Regina. But he came because of the Vietnam War.
Maybe, Roger, you want to tell us about the first day you arrived in Canada?
Yes, well, I had to go through customs. And I came in and there was this funny-looking French guy sitting there, and he started talking to me and so on and so on, talking, and he said, well, are you opposed to the war? So I thought, I said, yes. So he stood up, put out his hand and said, welcome to Canada.
Oh, he shook your hand.
So that was my introduction.
Isn't that wonderful?
I think, Roger's reaction was, oh, this is a really great country.
You were probably a little hesitant to even answer the question. Not, if it's the Border Patrol and not sure how they're going to react.
Yeah.
Well, he had a funny accent, I noticed.
Well, us Canadians do.
Especially French Canadians.
So now you met in Saskatchewan, and then how did you make your way to British Columbia?
We were in Regina until we were already married. We married in 1969. We came to Vancouver in 1971, I believe.
I think that's correct, yeah.
And Roger quit his job at the University of Regina. We decided we wanted to be on the West Coast. And we came out here to look for work and couldn't find it. And then finally I got a job, and then I got involved in the women's movement. And a group called the Working Women's Association, and Roger was my sidekick, really. He was so supportive of working women struggling for unions and whatnot in Vancouver. And I managed to work, and then finally he said to me, let's go back to school. If we go to UBC, we can get financial support, we can study Chinese, and maybe one day we can go to China. And he had already studied Chinese at Michigan State, and so we began studying Chinese. And a couple of years later, Canada had a scholarship exchange with China because it was Cultural Revolution. Everything had closed down, but things opened up, and we were in the first group chosen to go to China. So we went to Beijing together.
Wow, and that was the 70s?
We went in 73.
In 73. So you travel around Asia, you teach, you educate, you share your message, and then you come back to Canada. Is there a reason you came back to Canada?
That's a good question.
I had to drag him back. He was so in love with China. We were in Beijing for 2 years, 73 to 75. Then we got a teaching gig at the Guangzhou Foreign Languages Institute, taught there for 2 years. And at the end of the 2 years, I think he wanted to spend the rest of his life in China. But I was homesick. I wanted to come back. And so we came back for a year, and then we went into graduate school at UBC, and I finished an MA, actually went back to Regina to finish it, and Roger did his PhD at UBC in sociology. So he had the PhD, I had an MA. And then in, if I can remember correctly, then we came back to Vancouver. Yeah, and okay, so then you got your PhD. You did like one of the fastest PhDs. He did a PhD in 2 years at UBC, but this guy's a genius. I mean, it took me 6 years. It took him 2. But he'd already done the research in China, so he'd done all his field research. I had all the stuff, so that was not so. So then we got a chance. We found out that there was a job opening at the University of Inner Mongolia, and I had in the meantime had enrolled in the PhD program at SFU in the School of Communication, and so I decided to do my field research in China and use the opportunity to teach at the University of Inner Mongolia, and the two of us applied for this position. Actually, they came and recruited us because somebody knew us and knew we'd taught in China. In Inner Mongolia, there were no other foreigners, so they were worried. They wanted someone who could already speak Chinese. So when my parents learned that we were going to Inner Mongolia, they said, "Oh, we're going to take early retirement. We want to come with you." Well, they take 4. And we contacted the people at the University of Inner Mongolia, and they said, "We can't afford 4." We said, "How about 4 for the price of 2?" And they said, "Okay, we'll do it." Which meant that our salaries now were closer to those of our colleagues. And we were put into, we lived in a much more integrated kind of community. We weren't in we weren't in a hotel or anything. We were living right on campus in an apartment building together with cooks and drivers and other teachers. And it was fantastic. It was a wonderful, wonderful experience. But it also meant that Roger was extremely close to my parents because we spent those years together.
Which is great, which is why we're here today, and we're talking about family. And I'm so glad that you associated the title genius with Roger, because it is Roger, the connection with Roger, why we're here today. And he's brought that connection with the Alzheimer's Society of BC. So why don't you fast forward us a little bit and tell us what that connection is and how it came about.
Can you describe what happened in 2002 when you finally just couldn't teach anymore?
Oh, well, yeah, I could.
Please share that with us if you can.
Well, I started having more and more trouble preparing stuff and things like that, and I was also relying on using old material and various other things.
Crutches.
Yeah, and that was getting me very unhappy or upset or something like that, because I had absolutely no experience in having to do anything like that. No, with memory or anything like that. So that became very difficult.
So you were aware something was happening to you, but you didn't know what it was.
He thought it was Alzheimer's. He told the doctors he thought he had Alzheimer's.
Right off the bat.
Right off the bat.
Well, yeah, but it was pretty serious. I knew that, so I picked Alzheimer's. Well, anyway, that's what I thought it was.
So the first signs that you saw were applicable to your teaching methods, and what other types of things did you notice?
Well, the problem was my teaching methods were rather important because I didn't have to write anything down. So once I couldn't...
He had that kind of memory?
Yeah.
So once it was gone, then I was completely... And then, of course, you start reading. And it didn't satisfy me. So that it became more difficult to teach.
Mm-hmm. But what other kind of things happened in maybe social interaction or at home, or did you notice any changes?
The anxiety was obvious. And, this was a job that he had loved. And all of a sudden, it was terrifying. People would ask you, what book should I read? What should I do? And he was like, oh, I can't remember the author's name. Oh, no, I can't even remember the title. Like, it's just embarrassing. And academia is like that, your status is based on what's in your head, and you're supposed to be this walking encyclopedia or something. And so I had never had such a memory. So I had a million ways in which I got around that. But he'd had that kind of memory, therefore he didn't have all of the skills, like taking notes and ways to remember things and this sort of stuff. So he was it was a big disability.
It was all everything was in my head. I had no other...
So it got diagnosed as an anxiety disorder.
Really?
And then it got diagnosed as an attention deficit disorder, because whenever he became anxious, he couldn't remember anything. If they tested him, they'd say he'd sail through tests until he became anxious, and then he couldn't do anything. And they kept testing him. And also there's the kind of cognitive reserve, right, for people who are like this, so that his scores on the test were way, way above normal, but they weren't normal for him. So he knew he wasn't doing well. He'd come back and say to me, "Oh, I just did horribly on that test." And they'd say, "Oh, no, Roger, you're way above normal."
Oh, he aced it. Yeah.
Year after year after year, this went on. He had to quit working in 2002. He got the diagnosis in 2014.
Oh, my goodness. That's a long period of time.
Yeah.
And that's a lot of frustration, a lot of anxiety within the family.
Well, Roger handled this beautifully, because he became the one who held down everything at home. Like, he did all the cooking, all the washing of clothes, housekeeping, everything. He was fabulous. Well, I continued to work.
I did cook before. I liked cooking, so that was no big deal.
Well, that's how he won my heart. Fantastic cook.
It wasn't his mind.
Now I have to do the cooking, and I was just terrified because I've always been the sous chef. But I discovered he'd actually taught me everything. I was mentored by this great, great cook. So now he's an expert at dishwashing and chopping vegetables, and all the things I used to do, he does.
Well,
and
he was a great teacher then, and he's still a great teacher now.
Yeah, oh God,
That's
I continue to learn from him.
So tell us how you first made a connection with the Alzheimer's Society then. How did that come about? Did you make a phone call? Did somebody call you? Did a doctor refer you?
I called. But I looked it up on the website as soon as we had the diagnosis, and also I didn't know of the existence of the Alzheimer's. I never heard of it, but the doctor, or maybe it was a nurse, I can't remember, told me that they existed and that they would make a referral. But I didn't want to wait, and I looked it all up, and I got a phone number, and I connected with Dorothy. Boy, oh boy, she was great. I felt so reassured, and I also found out that there was a Shaping the Journey. What was it, 6 weeks or 5 weeks? And I talked it over with Roger. He said, "Oh, you mean we meet other couples and this?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "Oh, that'd be great." And so, we were eager to get in, and I saw the dates, and it was really perfect for us. And so I said to Dorothy, "Can we get in? Can we get in?" And she said, "Yes, there's room." And so that's how we did it.
So through that support group, that's probably how you would refer to as a family. You had no family members in Canada to support you, so you'd have to rely on neighbors or friends or other people that you met.
We weren't talking to people so much about it at that point. It was there were some people, some very close friends who knew about Roger's anxiety problems. And when we got the diagnosis, we told some of those people, but we weren't sort of running around to tell everybody. It was after having the experience of sitting around with other couples and talking, right? Mm-hmm. And realizing, oh, wow, it's fantastic to be able to share this. And then also discovering that if you bring it up with friends, they start saying, "Oh, my mother, or my next-door neighbor, or my best friend, or, my sibling." Everybody has a story. And you suddenly realize, oh, my goodness, it's everywhere.
You're not alone.
And people aren't talking about it. But all of a sudden you have a connection with somebody. And so all these, our circle of friends is now bigger than it was before because of this. And the relationships are much closer than they were before.
So let's talk about that big circle of friends too that you've developed, and because Roger, I understand you're one of the honorees for the Investors Group Walk for Alzheimer's, which is coming up on the 1st of May, and that's for the Burnaby New West area. So tell me a little bit about your role there.
I don't know why they did that.
Because you're a genius.
Actually, I can't.
I think it's because of your humor.
Yeah, I don't know if I provided the lighter part of all of this, sort of. I had all kinds of jokes that I would tell and stuff. That was one of the things I did.
It's in your support group. In the support group.
You probably stood out in that support group.
Yeah, I was the main entertainment. So it was a very good group, actually.
Pat, why do you think he was chosen?
Well, Dorothy's the one who called us to ask if we would be willing to do it. And we were also asked to participate in the research with the UBC researchers. And Dorothy's always sort of said, well, Roger is so, he talks. He's open about it. He can talk about experiences. And so we think he would be a good candidate. We weren't sure why, but we were we jumped at the chance to give back because we've received so much from the Alzheimer's Society. I can't even begin to describe how wonderful it's been. And it was the first experience with that group in the Shaping the Journey group that we went through together. And then several of us then, Roger has mates who are in his support group who came from that original Shaping the Journey group. But the group now is much larger than that because there were other people who did it at other times. But we have remained close with the couples that we went through with. And it's the main caregivers as well as the people with the diagnosis. We're all like a
family or group. Or
you are a family.
That's part of an extended family. But it also taught us that's what you got to create, as many of those kinds of families as you can. So one of the things that we've done is made sure that everybody knows. Virtually everybody we know knows. All our neighbors know, all our friends. We have a circle of friends in music because we're members of the Solidarity Notes Labor Choir, which is just incredible. They all
You don't have to be able to sing. They let me in.
And we're members of the Vancouver Folk Song Society, and we're part of a community in the, how do I describe this? There's a coffee house on Main Street that every Thursday evening there's an open stage and there's a feature, and I play the banjo, and we all sing folk music or our own creations or whatever, all kinds of music. And we've been doing it for over 10 years, and we all know each other, and it's a supportive community. So we have a circle of friends who are musicians, songwriters, singers, people who love music and know the power of music. And so they too are part of our support network.
Tell us how this musical background is going to be implemented in the Walk for Alzheimer's.
Well, I haven't had a chance to talk to Maria and Dorothy about this. I did talk to Vivian Tsai, who runs Roger's support group.
Well, let's just surprise them.
Okay. So what's happened is that a number of these musician friends have said, what can we do? What can we do to help? And, we've told people about the May 1st event, and we've asked musician friends to come and help us create music for the event so that it's a big family-friendly event with lots of music. And we don't know, we possibly will have musicians all staged along the walk, or we'll have a thing or a combination of that plus people providing music at the beginning. Roger and I are planning to try to write a song, because we've done a lot of songwriting together about the dementia journey.
I want to do a humorous one.
Of course,
yeah.
But we'll involve them in creating this event, and that's our idea. Anyway.
I think people will be very responsive, actually.
Absolutely. I think it's an excellent idea. So if I asked you one final question about what do you think is the most important thing that we can do to help create a dementia-friendly community for a family such as yours? Is there anything specific we can do to help you, or anything you want to leave with us that we really need to know and understand about someone who's received that diagnosis?
Oops. Oh, yeah. My headphones are coming off. Oh.
If there was is there anything that comes to mind, Pat or Roger?
Well, I think we had a very relatively easy transition, so I don't remember a great deal of angst and things like that, because we sort of got told what it was about and things. So that was very good. That's what I can remember. There may be more than that,
what I learned from Roger is don't hide it. Don't hide it. Tell people. You'll be really surprised. This is if you're the person with the diagnosis or you're a caregiver. The other thing is caregivers need support. They need lots of support. It's very, very challenging. And when friends come forward and say, what can I do to help? Even if it's just, come by and spend an afternoon, have tea or whatever, just give you a chance to talk. And very often you can work out a problem if you get a chance to talk about it.
With someone.
Yourself, and if someone, you're bouncing an idea off of somebody and they come back with other ideas, it's just be there. Just be there. The most important thing is not to hide it. The big problem with this, it's not obvious. You're not wearing a cast on your leg. You're not carrying a white cane. You don't have dark glasses or anything. It's not obvious.
I have a sign that I'm going to wear now. It says, "What me worry." It would sort of explain my condition.
People ask the question, what is that about? But this is, if you, what I found with Roger, like when he started to get lost, he would just go up to people and say, "Could you help me? I can't find my way home. This is my address, or this is this is the bus I'm trying to get, or whatever it is." And maybe because of China and having the disability of being basically blind and deaf and dumb, you know, when you first arrived, and we couldn't speak the language, we couldn't read the signs, we couldn't, you know, express ourselves in this way. So we know what it's like to sort of try to cope in a society with a disability. We want to create the kind of society in which someone who's got that kind of disability, we spot it. We see somebody who looks disoriented or something or other, and can I help? Do you need some help? That's the important thing.
And we'll leave it at that. Roger and Pat, thank you so much for sharing your story today. We wish you nothing but the best on this journey. And we look forward to seeing you as well at the Walk for Alzheimer's at Burnaby Lake, May 1st.
Okay.
It's a date. Right?
Is there food?
There'll be food.
Always food.
And there will be music, we understand.
Oh, good.
This is Boomer Life. We're talking about Alzheimer's disease and other dementias, and we're about to learn more about what happens at the neighborhood resource centres with a First Link coordinator. That's coming up next with the Alzheimer's Society of BC on CL 650.
Canada's only weekly radio show dedicated to the baby boomer lifestyle. This is Boomer Life on CL 650.